Now, I know there were other great receivers in the late 80s and the 90s in the prime of Jerry Rice's career, but we really only heard about Jerry Rice. Well, Jerry Rice and the playmaker Michael Irvin.
Oh my God, this is what's wrong with today. The young ladies today, they're not learning from mom how to cook. We're losing recipes. And
I don't think it's a coincidence we heard about these guys because they won championships. Yes, they were great, but we know their name because they won. Guys like Lynn Swann, Sterling Sharp, Andre Reed, Chris Carter, who I'm not sure would even get his flowers if it wasn't for the second half of his career and his TV career, honestly. The only other receiver I can think of from that era that got their flowers was Tim Brown, and I might be biased there because I'm a Raiders fan. And it's because at that time, the running back was the dominant position. It was the most popular position. You look at Jim Brown, you look at Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Marshall Faulk, Eric Dickerson, Marcus Allen, on and on and on. Being a running back was the coolest thing in the world in the 90s and the early 2000s because those guys inspired it. People grew up wanting to be Jim Brown, wanting to be Barry Sanders, wanting to be Eric Dickerson. So that inspiration led to the Adrian Petersons, the LaDainian Tomlinsons, the Shaun Alexanders, Frank Gore, Tiki Barber, Marshawn Lynch, all the dominant running backs we've seen in the 2000s. And that inspired so many great running backs. We see what we see today with the running back position being a little bit oversaturated and a bunch of guys that can play that position. But what's currently happening is we're seeing that with wide receivers. And like I said before, you gotta give credit to guys that came before, like Jerry Rice, like Tim Allen, all of those guys. But I think there were two special guys that really influenced the boom in wide receiver talent, and they were Randy Moss and Terrell Owens. Now, other receivers came in around that time, Hines Ward, Marvin Harrison. You got guys like Larry Fitzgerald that came in a little bit after those guys, but in my opinion, those guys showing up made it cool to be a wide receiver. Not saying it was ever not cool, but it was always cooler to be the running back before those two guys showed up. And shortly after those guys showed up, we seen Larry Fitzgerald, we seen Steve Smith, we seen Calvin Johnson, we seen Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne, Julio Jones, etc., etc., and then the receivers that came after that generation, which brings us up until now, where people are considering this the best wide receiver draft of all time, even though we just maybe had the best wide receiver draft of all time. The 2021 NFL draft gave us Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Josh Palmer, and a couple other receivers. I'm sure you guys understand where I'm going with this. Pretty soon receivers are going to be the new running back. Where why would I pay a max deal to a receiver when I could draft one that's probably gonna be just as good? Two recent examples. You guys remember Stephon Diggs, and you guys remember people saying the Vikings were dumb for letting go of Stephon Diggs. Justin Jefferson just came in and is better than Stephon Diggs already. Cooper Kupp gets hurt and Puka Nacua comes in and has the greatest receiving year ever for a rookie. Cooper Kupp has one outlier season where he had 1,900 yards. Besides that season, last year's Puka Nacua season was much better than any other Cooper Kupp year. I'm not here to make the argument that Puka Nacua is better than Cooper Kupp or even Justin Jefferson being better than Stephon Diggs. I might have said he's better. He had a better statistical season than Stephon Diggs ever has. My only point is how long until these teams start treating receivers the same way they treat the running backs. Now listen, I'm a Raiders fan, so I might be a little bit biased on this one, but I've seen receivers people tell me were awful come to my team and be awesome. Jacoby Myers came to my team, had an amazing season. Michael Crabtree back in the day had an amazing season. People swore Nelson Aguilar was a terrible receiver, came to my team, had 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I'm a little bit biased here. I'm someone that didn't want us to go out there and get Devontae Adams because I felt like those resources could go to more important positions. I seen Hunter Renfrow give us a 1,000-yard season, and then he didn't even play this year. That is how deep wide receiver is around the league, and I feel like teams are gonna start picking up on it pretty soon, and I feel like this year's draft is gonna be that tipping point. I also feel like we're gonna see the same thing with edge rushers in a couple years. When you look at it right now, you got Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Joey Bosa, all these guys, Hassan Riddick, you know, Rashawn Gary, all of these guys, Daniel, like there's so many guys right now that eventually you're gonna be able to get some great ones on a very affordable deal. That's just how it works. It's a cycle. We just seen it with the linebacker position. When I was growing up, every kid wanted to be a linebacker. If you played defense, you wanted to be Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, DeMarcus Ware. That was the cool thing to be. Junior Seau, Derek Brooks, that was it. If you play defense, that's what you wanted to be. Now, I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to football. I don't know all the X's and O's, but if I had to guess, I would guess that as the league became more of a passing league, the value of linebackers containing the run became a little bit less valuable. But now we're seeing it as we get more and more running quarterbacks. Having good linebackers is becoming more and more essential again. I don't think it's a coincidence that San Francisco and Baltimore were probably the two best defenses in the NFL and probably have the two best linebacker cores in the NFL. And if I had to guess, we're now going to see a trend of teams trying to prioritize the linebacker position because the 49ers and the Ravens just showed us how important that is in today's era of football. I know I'm not saying anything that's revolutionary. I'm just intrigued by it. Like I said earlier, I'm intrigued to see when teams finally stop valuing the receivers the way they value the receivers. And at that point, maybe we start to see teams pivot back to having great running backs. I don't know. As much as the game changes, it always stays the same. You know, scoring was down in the NFL this year. I'm not sure if anything I said has any correlation to that, but it was the lowest touchdowns per game since 2006. So that's kind of crazy. Now I'm kind of cheating because 2017 was only 0.1 higher than this year. But to find one lower, you have to go all the way down to 2006. So clearly something's going on. Somebody out there has found a new strategy that everybody's copying, whatever it is. And of course, kickers have gotten a lot better, so teams are taking more field goals, so that probably explains a lot of it. And that's another conversation for another day. At what point does that become a problem? When dudes are hitting from 60 consistently, that changes the game. I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, but that's a conversation for another day. Speaking of kickers, did you guys know Sebastian Janikowski only made one Pro Bowl? I found that out recently and that was shocking as a Raider fan. You know, he was kind of all we had as a fan. That's random. Anyways, back to the point. I just want to make this video real quick because again, I found it interesting. But you guys let me know in the comments down below what you think about the current state of the NFL. What you think about the overall crop of wide receivers. Do you agree with my point? Will we start to see them be a little bit devalued? And when you give your opinion, let me know what team you actually root for because that might change your perspective on things. If you're a fan of the Chiefs, maybe you thought losing Tyreek Hill was the end of the world and now you probably don't feel that way at all. If you're a Ravens fan, you probably feel like you definitely need a number one option, right? So it's all different. It's all about perspective. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a Raiders fan. I've seen us have Hunter Renfrow and Nelson Aguilar, and I've seen us have Devontae Adams, and nothing changed for our team. So I'm a little bit biased in my perspective, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a like, please comment, please subscribe. I'm out. Peace.